Have you ever walked into a gym full of people with rippling six packs, lifting intimidating and obscene amounts of weight, and thought to yourself, I so do not fit in here? Imposter syndrome. We've all felt it at some point. And for an entrepreneur, that inner critic can be so loud, we wonder if we should just throw in the towel. Welcome to the premiere episode of The Fitness of Business. I'm your host, Leslie Boyce, and I'm so happy that you're here. I wanted to kick this podcast off with a topic that resonates with most, if not all, entrepreneurs: imposter syndrome. So, how can you shift your mindset to focus on your strengths rather than constantly comparing yourself to others, and learn to speak with authority, operate your business with confidence, and tell that nagging, insecure voice to GTFO? I've invited Dr. Carolynn Francavilla to chat with me today. Dr. Francavilla is a family physician and obesity specialist in the Denver area, and she's a serial entrepreneur. She owns Green Mountain Partners for Health, her medical practice where she practices family and obesity medicine. She started Help Your Patients Lose Weight to help educate other physicians on how to treat obesity and run their practices. And she also started GLP Strong, a fitness program for patients losing weight with medications. She was honored to be named the Obesity Medicine Association Clinician of the Year in 2025. So, yeah, I'm excited to get in this conversation with her. But before we jump into today's topic and conversation, every episode will kick off with a listener question in a segment called Hey Coach. It's a chance for you, the listener, to pretend you have a business coach in your back pocket. What business plateau has you feeling stuck? What's keeping you up at night about your business? Submit your questions to Leslie at thefitnessofbusiness.com. So without further ado, our first Hey Coach.
Hey, coach. Here's where I'm at. I spent 2 years in business school studying what makes a great entrepreneur: the mindset, the playbooks, the models, all of it. And now, 6 months into running my own fitness studio, I feel like I'm just fumbling through it. Some days I honestly wonder, did I learn anything for real? Or am I just smart and good at school? I look around and see other entrepreneurs and founders who seem to just get it. They're growing, they're confident, they're seemingly crushing it. Meanwhile, I'm overwhelmed, not really making any money, and questioning everything. I guess I'm just asking, do I really have what it takes for this? Or did I just have a good idea and I'm actually better suited for a different type of role?
Okay. Dr. Francavilla, welcome to the show. And thank you for being my first guest.
Thank you so much for having me, Leslie. I have, worked with you for years in different ways and excited for this endeavor.
Yeah, what I forgot to mention is that Dr. Francavilla, who feels a little weird to call her that because I know her so personally as well, but she was a member of my CrossFit gym when I first opened back in 2012 or 2013. So we definitely go way back.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And I think what we're going to talk about so much today is so many of the lessons I learned from CrossFit and from being coached in CrossFit are things that have translated to my life, to my professional success, and grateful for you as a coach.
Well, thanks. Grateful for you to have been open to my coaching. um, so I really wanted to talk with you for many reasons, but I feel like you can speak to the topic of imposter syndrome, both from the standpoint of your own entrepreneurial journey and in regards to the patient population that you work with. So I guess I'd love to start with, how would you respond to our listeners' question, wondering whether they're cut out for entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I think that a lot of people, have those ideas. And that's like the really fun part for most people of the business, right? Is getting started. You have this dream of how you could help the world, how you could serve people, how you could use your ideas. And then it gets down to the grind a bit. And we could compare that, to a workout, right? It looks great on paper. And then you start and you get way through it. And you're like, this is even harder than this looked, right?
Yeah.
And so when I coach people on the business side for medical practices, I always say there's two rules to business. And when things feel complicated, go back to these: make money, don't break the law. And so one of the things that gets frustrating with any business is when you're not making money. And so you've got to look at the numbers or get a coach or a consultant or an accountant who can help you figure out why you're not making money and make money. That's when the business starts to become rewarding. And then not get distracted by new ideas, by creative things, and then you just have to grind, right? Um, Many of the endeavors I've had take a long time to take off. So I'm 2.5 years into a podcast myself. And if you just look at the first podcast episode and how many downloads you have, sometimes it can feel, disappointing no matter how many it is. And then 2.5 years, 5 years in, you start looking at the numbers and things add up. And so I think listener to me sounds like they're just in that grind where, the idea is there, the work is there, and just focus on what you have to do every day to progress your business and to make it make money.
Yeah. Well, I think there are a lot of things I can extrapolate from what you just said, but the notion that it's the long game. I feel like pretty much every topic that I have planned for this podcast can always come back to this idea of nothing is going to happen overnight. I mean, it's the same with fitness. You're not going to all of a sudden wake up one day and say, "You know what? I think today I'm going to become a Olympic athlete." I mean, that may never happen, but regardless, the long-term plan has to be in the back of your mind, and that reality check of things aren't just going to happen as quickly as you want, but how can you tell your inner critic that that's all part of the process and that's normal, and how can you focus on the things that you are doing?
So, I think what I love about this concept, the fitness of business, is just that how you can translate your experience as an athlete or with fitness into your life and into your business. And so for me, I went into CrossFit not really feeling like an athlete. I'd always played sports, but I certainly was never the best at any of them. But CrossFit looked really cool to me. And I thought if I could do some of that stuff, I'd be really proud of myself. It'd be really,
Mhm.
really cool. And so, I constantly surprised myself with what I could do. One of my profile pictures that I still use is me doing a rope climb because that was something I felt like I would never be able to do. And I think I did it a couple months into CrossFit. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Get a picture of me. And so I think that if you are struggling with imposter syndrome and something new that you're doing in life, calling on something that you do feel like you've been successful on. And so for me, sometimes that is remembering that I've finished a marathon, that I've finished Murph more times than I can count, that I've done hard things and that I can do these other hard things. And so that's where I think that crossover can happen is when you've done one hard thing, you can remind yourself you can do this new hard thing. And so when you are feeling that imposter syndrome, I recommend calling on something else you've been successful at, whether that was finishing school with a GPA that you're really proud of, whether that was sticking with a job that was really hard, finishing some tough workouts. Maybe you were an immigrant and you went through it. Like, what other things have you done in life that you're proud of that were hard? And calling on that inner strength when something you're doing right now is getting hard.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that, you know, certainly I fall into this category of, like, I started my own business. I mean, I've been doing my own entrepreneurial journey for 20 years or so, but because I can feel how rewarding it is once I do have those, glimmers of success, accomplishment, someone comes to me rather than me having to, pitch somebody on my services or whatever it is. But when you don't have that hindsight yet because you're just starting out, I think it's really crucial to, surround yourself with people also who remind you, hey, this is hard. You've chosen a very difficult path, but you've also chosen a very rewarding path. But it's okay to feel both of those things.
Yeah, and that may be friends or family who often are your best people at pointing out how far you've come or reminding you of your past successes. But also, there's a huge role for coaching. And so I did start off doing CrossFit on my own at a 24-hour fitness and just followed, the workout plans that were online. And after a while, I was like, okay, I want to get better at this. And when you have, a coach in the athletic world, someone's watching your form, they're pushing you harder, they're challenging you with things you think you can't do. That translates to other things in life. And so for some of my business endeavors, I have hired coaches, right?
Mhm.
Where I'm like, okay, how do I progress this? How do I move it along? Help me think about this differently. And so, just like you might have a coach that you've used in athletics in your past, coaching for your business or for your life has a role too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know you and I sort of trauma bonded over our experiences with business partners. And I know that so when I set out to open my CrossFit gym, I was planning on doing it all on my own. I had no real interest in a business partner, but somebody approached me and said, "Hey, I'm actually thinking of opening a gym as well. What if we go in on it together?" And it like immediately triggered the insecurities that I'm not even sure I knew were there. I think I was feeling really confident that I got this on my own. But then when someone came along and was like, "Well, but I can help," I thought, "Oh, maybe I should take that." And so we partnered and it was a total disaster. But I think that it's really tempting to just let a situation like that feed into your insecurities that you may or may not know exist. So, I guess what are your thoughts on
I think that's such a great point. So I was thinking about starting my own practice, but it seemed really overwhelming. And I had someone who started, talking to me about how they wanted to start their own practice. And so then it felt more comfortable to do it with someone else, to have a partner. And, when that relationship ended, which ending business relationships is really challenging. It's like a divorce in many ways, and
Oi.
you are very, connected to this person financially and logistically in your life, and so that was a challenging experience to go through, to say the least. But actually, my businesses really started thriving when I did them on my own for I think a variety of reasons. Partly, I'm more motivated to do things for myself, for other people.
Yeah.
And so when success was all my own, that was more exciting to me. But I do think that like starting my practice initially with a partner probably did come from this place of imposter syndrome, feeling like I couldn't do things alone. Which I've definitely since proven to myself is not the case. And it doesn't mean there may not be cases of having a business partner that makes sense. But I think if you're doing it from a place of insecurity or from a place of thinking it's going to make your life easier, that may not be the case.
Right. There are a lot more things to consider than that.
And it
Um,
truly is. I mean, it's like a marriage in many ways, right? You are
cool.
legally tied to this person, and the financial choices that one or both of you make, like, have a huge effect on the other person. So partnerships are definitely not something to enter into lightly.
Right. And we come back again to that idea of this is the long game and when you enter into a partnership, at least, from my own personal experience, you don't anticipate that long game. You don't anticipate when things are going to go wrong, and inevitably they will in some capacity and have a plan for that. So, yeah.
That's where,
Tre
again, when I'm talking to people who are starting businesses, you can't underestimate the value of legal advice. A
Yeah.
lot of times when you're starting a business, you may not want to invest in lawyers. That service can be, expensive, but that's one of the big things they do is they know all the bad things that can happen. They know all the contingencies you should have in mind, and they can help advise that, help create contracts, help you create systems that are gonna protect you down the line. So that's something I think is
Mhm.
always worth investing time and money into because they know the things that you're just not thinking of. Again, when we start businesses, we're so excited about like the creative process and the potential and the here and now. And we may not be thinking about what things look like 5, 10, 20 years down the line. And that's what lawyers are so good at helping you think about.
Yeah, and I think it's crucial to emphasize that seeking the assistance or support from resources like lawyers or people who have, who are experts in their industry, that doesn't it is not shining light on a weakness. It is the fact that you cannot do this alone, even if you're running your business solo.
Totally. I mean, I think that's like us for everything in our lives, right? Is there's always a solution to any problem. Sometimes it involves hiring someone else, consulting with someone else, paying for something, but there's always a solution out there. And if you don't have it, someone else out there has it for you. And it may just be, a coach or an accountant or a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I guess looking back at when you first started your practice and comparing it to today, where did you feel those elements of imposter syndrome and where are you still feeling them today or what's changed?
Yeah. So I think just there's so much logistics with business. I did not get an MBA, right? And there's a lot of additional like legal things we have to do in medicine. Probably every industry really has them. And so those were the things that I think sometimes felt overwhelming. And again, I think just getting more comfortable asking for help from
Mhm.
experts, realizing I do not have to figure things out alone, and that people, for small businesses, people love helping small businesses.
Yeah.
People want to see your business be successful. And that's been something that's been so powerful for me over time is just feeling comfortable asking for help. That is not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign that you don't know what you're doing. I'm really good at being a doctor. That's what I'm trained in. And it's okay if I don't have all the answers for business things or I don't know some of the terms my accountant uses. That's not my zone of genius. It's okay
Mhm.
to get help with those things.
Yeah, because being able to admit that you're not a genius in every zone is very powerful and very liberating.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm actually dealing with like weird imposter syndrome right now because I got this big award this year. I was named the Obesity Medicine Association's Clinician of the Year. And
It
number
was
one,
very impressive, by the way.
I feel like too young to have received this award. And I also like it's like this pressure that like, oh my gosh, like am
Mm.
I really the best at what I'm doing right now? Have I peaked? Do I know everything? Should I be only focusing on this instead of some of my other interests? And so definitely there's these unexpected things that happen in our life that make us question things. And I think so the real advice I was actually thinking of when we listened to your question from your audience member was the advice I give people the most often when you're feeling imposter syndrome, you're feeling worried about maybe what other people are thinking, worried people are judging, is to watch a very specific episode of Schitt's Creek. Have you watched Schitt's Creek?
Yeah.
Okay, it's like the best show, right? So there's an episode, I think it's called The Driver's Test, where David needs to renew his driver's license. He has to do a driver's test, and he's really anxious and worried about it, despite being like what a 30 or 40-year-old guy, right?
At least.
And so the guy goes to give him the driver's test, and he's like, and his sister Alexis goes, like nobody cares. Like you just need to stop worrying about this. Like nobody cares. And he's like, that's so mean. Gets in the car to do the test, and the guy giving him the test is like on his phone, texting, like not even paying attention to his driver's test. He looks over and he's like, oh, "You don't care! Like you don't even care, right?" And it's like this epiphany to him that people are not paying as much attention to him as he thinks. And so at the end of the day, no one is paying that much attention to what you're doing. No one is paying more attention to your own life than you are. Like no one cares that much. Like
Yeah.
take the risk, do the thing. Nobody really cares. It's gonna be fine.
I thought you were gonna talk about the episode where he learns, how to use a credit card, and he's like, I just put things on the credit card." And his dad's like, "Yes, but, like, how do you pay it?" And he's like, "Well, it just goes on the credit card." So I'm really glad that you didn't, suggest that one as a way of people, approaching their business loans or
Put it on a credit card. I
yeah,
mean,
it just
absolutely, it'll catch up to you sooner rather than later.
yeah, that's right. Okay, I wanna move into talking a little bit more specifically about your practice. And I remember when we first met, you were just either opening or about to open your practice. And I asked you, what your specialty was. And you said obesity and weight loss. And I was like, uh, okay, like that's really a thing. But like you knew it was something people needed. I mean, could you have predicted where it was going to be right now?
No, not at all. it is mind-boggling where we were at with treating obesity in terms of the technology we have, as well as just the buzz around it, and the fact that this kind of formerly obscure thing I did within medicine is now popular.
Yeah.
Say that I'm dizzy all the time because I just can't even keep up with how quickly the world is changing in my field. But yeah, people will call me things like a pioneer, which again, I feel like too young to be a pioneer of something. But um, it was something that I feel like I saw. Think anyone who is going into starting a business, not any a lot of people go into starting a business because they see a problem they wanna solve.
Mhm.
And so that's me, I'm a problem solver. I try to solve any problem. I love solving problems in creative ways, and that's what's fun about business to me. And for me, when I was doing my medical training, I saw that one of the problems that was impacting my patients the most was their weight and their metabolic health. And it was leading to things like diabetes and heart disease and trouble with mobility, skin infections, kidney disease, being on dialysis. And I'm a big picture person. And so for me, instead of giving people more and more medications or seeing them get sicker and sicker, the underlying cause of treating weight was such a clear solution to improving health. And so, even though I kind of had to forge my own path in this field initially and figure out a lot on my own, I really felt very convinced that that was the best way to help my patients live longer and live better.
Yeah.
And so, staying, just true to that throughout all the different things that have come and trends that have come is really focusing on just trying to help my patients live longer and live better. And so I think that's a core mission of mine. I think with any business, knowing what your core mission is important. And so mine's always been to help people just live longer and live better.
Yeah, which is it's so simple, and yet it says everything you need to know.
And so that's been my guiding course throughout this, right?
Mhm.
So for example, one thing people have often suggested I do, people will give you unsolicited advice with your business, right? One
No, I
one
haven't experienced that.
One piece of unsolicited advice that I would get frequently is that I should do before and after pictures. And
Mhm.
for me, that was something I really didn't ever want to do because for me, helping people with their weight is not about appearance. I want people to move
Mhm.
away from that and focus on their health and improving how they feel and how they feel long term. And so if I use that in my marketing, that wouldn't be true to my mission, right? So to me, that's really important, like knowing your mission. If other people do that, I totally understand why they do that for their businesses, no judgment. That wasn't true to my mission for my
Yeah.
business. And so, being really clear in why I do things, I think has been important for me.
Yeah, absolutely, and which is very hard to do if it's sort of like people like the shiny thing and they like those before and after comparisons because they tell a story without having to tell a story, and I'm sure that those are very appealing to a lot of patients or potential patients. But kind of going back to, you know, nobody else cares about your business as much as you do, and that is absolutely something I tell my clients often, um, to sort of like remove some of the emotion from your day-to-day operations. But given that you're in a field that, correct me if I'm wrong, has a lot of critics,
Mhm.
especially these days, like, how do you sort of reconcile, I guess, tuning out that noise?
I think finding your people is really helpful. So there is a really strong community of colleagues that I have, including some mentors from early on in my career. And so having people who get you is,
Mhm.
nothing can replace that. So I definitely have found my community, and virtually as well. So Facebook is something that I relied on very heavily early in my career to connect both with entrepreneurs in my space as well as just thought leaders in my space. So I feel like I have all these friends that I know virtually who are my support. We'll send each other a message when things get frustrating or when we have great successes too.
Yeah.
And so I think finding a community where you can share your successes and share your challenges and people who get you, is really powerful. And sometimes that can get so strong that you almost don't even see the outside where you're like, oh, people are complaining about this. Why would they? Right? Like this is like
Amazing.
I yeah. So I think can drown out the noise by finding sort of like your peers. I'm sure there's some people where there are no peers, right? If you're cutting edge enough or doing something that's exciting enough, maybe you don't have someone, maybe you haven't found those peers yet, but you may be able to find someone who's been in a similar situation in their space, right? So my husband's
Mhm.
also an entrepreneur now. His business is totally different in probably every possible way. But like we kind of find light connection in those struggles of just running a business and sometimes just having people who don't get us.
Yeah, well, kind of like making a almost a parallel to your, not wanting to do before and after pictures because it doesn't align with your values and your mission. I've had people suggest to me, okay, fine, I've received some unsolicited advice that, in my marketing, I should say, "Hey, work with me and you're going to increase your profits by, X percent," and I just am like, "But I can't promise that. That is not what I offer. I offer support and motivation and positivity and community and resources and all of that, but like to put a metric on it has never been something that's made me comfortable." So I can really appreciate it's really tempting to go that route of, this is obviously showing what I can do and will, sort of dangle that carrot in front of people.
And, also thinking about your clients, if you told them that and they achieved that, they're going to think you did that when in reality, you
Mhm.
coached them to do that and they need to have that empowerment that they now have the skills to keep doing it, right? Like you may have gotten them there, but they did it, right? And so I think that you're totally right that coaching people, you're getting them there, but if
I'm not
they're
doing
looking
it
for
for
just
them.
that specific outcome, you're not doing it for them. You're coaching
Mhm.
them to get there.
Oh my gosh, thank you. S This went a totally different direction than I thought. Um,
Yeah, that happens sometimes. Oh, I'm surprised.
just talking about some of your patients and a perspective that you can offer regarding imposter syndrome from the perspective of your patients. Like, I would imagine this is rampant among your patient population, feeling like they're cheating or they aren't working hard enough, or I could go on and on and on, but I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I think that is something I see in a couple ways. So often I'll see people who come in and they've been really successful in life in different ways, very successful maybe in their career, or successful academically or in relationships. And they feel like they're a person who really has their life together, but they struggle with this one thing, which is their weight. And they may have tried all the right things. They often are doing all the right things when they come to see me, meaning they're exercising as much or more than we recommend. They're eating a generally healthy diet or sometimes a really strict healthy diet. And yet they're not seeing a change on the scale. And so society has told them it's because they lack willpower or they lack discipline or that they're lying and they're not doing the things they're doing. And the truth about obesity, which is, weight that's affecting your health, is that it's really truly out of your control. And I think for me, I had to come from a place of humbleness that I don't struggle with my weight and I do most of the right things, but that is not the entire reason why my weight is normal. And recognizing that people can do all the same things as me or more in many cases and still struggle. And once I saw that pattern, many times for my patients, really truly understanding this is a physiologic state. It's a state of their body. And so I really spend a lot of time making sure my patients understand that this is not their fault and that there's no amount of discipline or motivation or hard work that is going to lead some people to weight loss. And so I think that that's really key, and for me to continue spreading that message anywhere I can is really really important because that starts to undermine people's confidence in other ways, right? We actually, see that this affects people in their employment, in their confidence in relationships, in their confidence in social situations because they have blame and shame around their weight when in reality it's no more in control than, my asthma or my vision is.
Mhm. I think that's I mean, I have very little to add to that. I think that was just like, uh, hopefully very liberating for a lot of people to hear, for
Yeah, I hope
all
so.
all my listeners.
I hope because just know if weight is something that you have struggled with or that you watch someone in your life struggle with, it's not their fault. And there's been a quote going around by one of the true pioneers in my field, Dr. Robert Kushner. He said, overeating does not cause obesity. Obesity causes overeating. We keep looking at this the wrong way. When someone has all the metabolic disease associated with obesity, it leads to overeating. It makes it harder to regulate appetite. It's not the other way around. And we all know someone who eats an insane amount of food, doesn't pay attention to what they eat, and doesn't struggle with their weight, right?
Mhm.
They're not doing anything special. They just have different physiology. In fact, I remember we did a nutrition challenge at the gym with you, and there was this guy who kept asking me questions. He was really, really thin, lean guy, and his goal in the nutrition challenge was to put on weight. And he was doing those like mass gainer shakes that are like 1,000 calories a piece. And over the course of the 4 weeks or 12 weeks that we were doing his challenge, however long it was, this was like a decade ago, he like basically hadn't put on any weight despite increasing his calories by like 1,500 or something insane a day, right? So I think it's just really important to know that like your weight is not in your control completely, and it certainly should never define you.
Absolutely, yes, it's not a measure of your worth or your value. Okay, so with the emergence of, and the popularity of the GLP-1s and all the weight loss medications that are now available, has there been a bit of a rebound effect of the, acceptance of different body types and, curvier figures back to, since people, now have the ability to get skinny, quote unquote, air quotes? What, I guess,
Gosh,
what are
I
the
mean, I think
thoughts?
that's like really complicated. I think we definitely are still in a time where people have like more body acceptance. I keep watching like old, shows from like, late 90s, early 2000s, like Sex in the City and stuff. And I cannot believe how small some of those people are. I
Mhm.
mean, no wonder we all grew up with issues, right? But the message that I think most of us who focus on this professionally keep trying to have is that it's really about health. And people can very much be healthy at different sizes. There are people who have a normal BMI or are lean or thin who are not metabolically healthy or are not healthy. And there are people who, wear a size extra large or extra, extra large and they are completely healthy and fit and their
Mhm.
blood work looks great. And so I think that, body image, there's always going to be different opinions. There's different opinions culturally, right? So,
Right.
I have colleagues who take care of larger Black populations, and some of their patients actually don't want to lose weight. They like their
Mhm.
curves more, right? I've had that from some of my Latino patients in Colorado who like their curves. They don't want to, lose too much weight. Their boyfriend's like, oh, don't lose too much weight. So I think, we all come to this with our own biases of what we think or how we were raised, but there's lots of people who like the size they're at, and that's totally fine as long as your blood work looks good and you're fit and you're comfortable doing things you need to do in your life. So I think that's the perspective that we just all need to keep striving for. Is like
Mhm.
what is the health here, and let go of our different body images that we were raised with, regardless of what those are.
Yeah, and are you in a body that feels right to you?
Right. But like you do need someone to bounce that off of, right? Because
Mhm.
some of us were sort of raised in that environment or exposed to that environment that thinner was always better. And like that's absolutely not true, especially in the fitness world, right? Like, I mean, I think
Mhm.
that's why so many of us were drawn to CrossFit is we saw these really fit women who certainly weigh more than I do, but certainly have lower body fat than I do. And we're
Mhm.
kicking butt and they just look so strong and they
Yeah.
look so empowered. And so to me, that's what I want. I don't care as much about what my scale says. I'm like, can I flip a tire? Can I lift all my boxes when I'm moving? Can I do these powerful things? And so I think, again, there cannot be that negative body chatter where some of us always just want to lose more weight and questioning that for
Mhm.
there's this being comfortable in your skin, but many of my patients, like, they just always want to lose more. I saw a patient last week who's lost 120 pounds. She wants to lose another
Mhm.
100 pounds, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you lost an entire person already.
Oh
Like,
my
at
gosh.
some point we just have to
Yeah.
celebrate where we are and not always want more too.
Yes, well, I mean, it's so complicated, of course, there's all the emotional and psychological pieces at play here that we certainly don't have time for, nor am I qualified to talk about, but, so you talk about getting into CrossFit, and I was actually going to bring that up because one of the ways I really experienced imposter syndrome while running my gym was not even about the business side of things. It was that I never had a six pack. I never had, 12% body fat or whatever, ridiculously low body fat these women have. And I ate really well. I worked out all the time. I did all of the things that all those women were also doing. And I kicked butt on all the workouts and felt the need to just prove myself in that way. Like, I need to come in first in every workout. I need to lift the heaviest, um, because my physical appearance, I felt, was not in line with what people typically associated with a female CrossFit athlete. And
Yeah.
so that was certainly an unexpected way I felt that imposter syndrome while running the gym. So I'm curious how that shows up for you in running your practice.
Well, first, I want to say that as someone who joined your gym, that's not what I saw. I saw someone who was incredibly strong and fit, and someone who is a tremendous leader and was really eloquent. So, those were the things I saw, and that, drew me to you as a person and as a coach. But yes,
Here we go again.
experienced similar things. So mine was almost like the flip of that, but same thing where it's like, what do people expect from you when they want your help? And so actually many of my colleagues who do what I do struggled with weight themselves, and that's why
Mhm.
they became passionate about the field or why they learned so much. And so that was not my experience. And so I asked one of my one of the gurus in my field, when I had to have a one-on-one dinner with him early in my career, is like, are people going to want to, see me if I haven't struggled with my weight myself? And he was like,
Mhm.
well, you're a doctor. You know how to treat appendicitis. Have you ever had appendicitis? And that was super powerful for me to be like, yeah,
Yeah.
I treat all sorts of things that I don't
Mhm.
experience. I treat men who have body parts I don't have. Like, I do all these things in my field that I don't personally experience, but I know a lot about. Like, you don't have to be good at the thing. And that's coaching too, right? Like, I mean, I actually trained to be a CrossFit coach as well. Like, I can coach someone to do maybe a kipping pull up, even if I can't do that. Right. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think no one's paying that much attention. I think that's like the key thing that you have to learn and that you learn over time when you do have imposter syndrome and you sort of outgrow it is no one cares that much. And if they
Mhm.
do, what's their problem? If there is
Yeah.
someone out there who was judging your appearance, then what's their problem? Where's that coming from? That's from their own insecurity. It's not about you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Which just takes time and, positive affirmations and pep talks and surrounding yourself with your people who get it, who are there to genuinely, be on your side and root for you. And really like taking that in, the positivity. I think we can be, back to your prestigious award, like very quick to say, what did I deserve that? How, like, why me? And shouldn't it be someone else? And now what? Like, we need to just take these things in and say, "No, I deserved it. Other people saw that I deserved it. Period." So there.
Great advice.
Okay. I have 2 more questions before we kind of wrap up here. Where do you struggle the most in your own health and wellness practices?
Traditionally for me, sleep is where I will cut corners. I have a lot of energy as a person, and I can definitely get away with getting less sleep. It's not like my Achilles heel, which certainly is great. If you want to become a doctor, not needing sleep is good to get through training. But I do know it's important for health, and I do know that I feel better and I perform better both physically and have better concentration when I do get enough sleep. So, I think that's my continual thing that I'm always working on is prioritizing,
Mhm.
sleep in my life. But I think, we all have to look at, how we're performing and give ourselves that feedback. So I also wore one of those Aura rings for a while. And what I found out is I get really, really good quality sleep. So sorry to all the people out there who get the other results when they wear wearables. And so that made me feel a little bit better that even if I'm not, getting the 7.5 hours that I recommend to my patients, that, my 6.5 are like really high quality. So maybe that's why it's okay. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'd like to know a little bit about your desire to be a stand-up comedian.
Oh. I don't think there's any greater feeling, and you're very funny and you have a great stage presence. There's like no better feeling than making someone laugh. Is there? Like
No.
when you just deliver
Yeah.
something and people you just can tell you made them laugh, to me that's like one of the best feelings in the world. So if I could do that like full time and spend, 30 minutes on stage getting people to laugh, I think that'd be a great second job.
You are very funny as well, and quick, and witty, and all the things. And also, because I dated a stand-up comic a long, 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 long time ago, talk about imposter syndrome.
Oh, like stand-up
The
comedians have imposter syndrome.
like, insecurities running rampant through that
Well,
industry,
I think
so
I think that to me, it's like looks like such a hard thing to do, right? Because if like I get on
absolutely.
stage in front of people frequently, and it's to give dorky doctor talks, but I always try to make people laugh, and it's sometimes like you say something funny, and there's 1,000 people sitting there, and no one laughs, and it's a terrible feeling, like. So I get like, I think that's probably why stand-up comedians are
Yeah.
so impressive to me because I don't think there's anything harder than doing it.
Yes, to deliver and to land and to connect and to yeah. No, I agree, and no thank you, I like a script. Um, is there anything before I kind of jump into the last segment, anything that you wanna add or anything you don't feel like we covered?
I mean, I think just really going back to sometimes it's just that grind, right? And that was, I think, the best thing that has come from fitness for me is I don't do things to beat other people or to win because I'm not that good at any of the sports I do. I do them to push myself and to prove that I can stick with something and do something. And so again, that helps me call on strength when I'm trying to finish an assignment or reach a business goal that, I have done other hard things before and I can do it. And so, whatever the person listening can call on to find that strength from, that's, I think, how you move past this imposter syndrome. Like, what else have you been able to do or be successful at? And how do you translate that into what you're trying to be successful at right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Hindsight, perspective, uh, having somebody else, point these things out and remind you. I remember my parents used to always come to the gym when I would have my, anniversary parties. They always flew in for them, and the anniversary parties were very well attended. We'd probably get 50 to 70 people there, and they were fun, and everyone's having a great time, and my parents would say, "Do you realize how successful you are?" And my initial reaction, and I would probably do the same thing to this day, is like, "Yeah, but I'm not making that much money." And it's like, change the measure, change the metric,
Yeah.
because that is only going to get me stuck in a cycle of insecurity and then feeding that insecurity. So, I think just having these conversations is so helpful.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Francavilla, thank you so much for joining me today. I always love our conversations, and today was no different. So I just really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me and congrats on your first podcast.
Yay! Thank you. And you, the listener, can check out Dr. Francavilla's podcast, The Dr. Francavilla Show, anywhere there's a podcast. The information about that and links to learn about her GLP Strong program are all in the show notes. And submit your Hey Coach questions to Leslie at thefitnessofbusiness.com so I can answer your burning business questions and continue booking guests you want to hear from. So, we start each episode with our Hey Coach segment. And we're going to end each episode by asking my guest the following question. So, on the podcast, we talk a lot about how entrepreneurship is basically a workout. What is one business strength or habit you wish you had developed earlier in your career?
I think that the thing that I wish I had developed earlier on was like more systems, writing down how I would do things, which really helps when you finally need staff members or you need more staff members to do things in a standardized way. So I think having a little bit more in terms of like systems and operations would have made things a little easier or less stressful at times.
Absolutely. The incorporating the efficiency early on to create that foundation. I think that's a great one. Well, next episode, we are discussing social media burnout. How do you know where you need to be visible or if you even need to be? But in the meantime, if you've enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, leave a review, and submit those Hey Coach questions to Leslie at thefitnessofbusiness.com. See you next time.